In a previous video, we looked at solving inequalities that are just basic, just one simple inequality. In this video, we want to take a look at what we call compound inequalities, and you can write them in different ways. The way we will be working with them in our class is to write them as a string inequality. Now, this is considered a compound inequality because, like this first one, what it's saying is -3 is less than 2x plus 5, and 2x plus 5 is less than or equal to 7. So I could write it as two separate ones and solve two separate inequalities and then combine the answer at the end. To me, that's too much work. Why not just use my basic principles for solving, but pay attention to the three parts? Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so normally if I'd be solving for x, I'd want to add or subtract whatever needed to get the x term by itself. So in this problem, I would start by subtracting the 5. Now, the thing I have to remember that's a little bit different is I have to remember to subtract it from both ends of this string inequality. So I'm going to subtract it from the 7 and also from that -3. Okay, so I've got three sections I'm working with vertically. The first one, -3 minus 5, is going to leave me with a -8, still less than. Now in the middle, we're going to have just our 2x. And then last section, less than or equal to 7 minus 5 would be a 2. Normal solving, we would then go ahead and divide to get our x by itself. So we would divide by 2. Again, the only difference really is now I have to remember to do it to both ends, not just pick my favorite. I have to divide both sides here, both ends of that inequality string, by the 2. So all three sections are treated identically. All right, now my final answer here would be a -4 is less than x is less than or equal to 1. Now, if you remember when we've done these before, we can graph that, and we have our endpoints here, -4 and 1. And then x is going to be trapped in the middle of those two. Now, I want it to be strictly greater than the -4. Remember, you can read it backwards. So if -4 is less than x, that means x is greater than the -4. So I want it to be strictly greater. I'm going to use a parenthesis there. I want x to be less than or equal to the 1, so because it can equal the 1, I would use the bracket. Now, one last thing, let's review our interval notation. We're going to copy the endpoints of our shaded area, -4 and 1, and then copy the notation here. So a parenthesis on the -4, a bracket on the 1. Now, if you think you know what you're doing here, go ahead and pause a minute and see what you can do with the second example. All right, if you paused it, now you can see if your answer is right, or if you weren't quite sure, follow along now. Same thing as before. I have a 6 minus 2x in the middle of my inequality string. So if I'm trying to isolate, it's a +6 there, so I would need to subtract 6 out of that middle section. But we're going to treat everything the same. That means both ends of my inequality are also going to have the 6 subtracted from them. So first section, -4 minus 6 leaves me with a -10. Bring down our less than or equal to. Middle section, we are left with just our -2x term, so we're making progress. And then bring down our less than. 14 minus 6 would be an 8. Just like the last problem, we're going to go ahead and isolate the middle part, the x, by dividing the middle by -2. Right? That means we're going to divide both ends also by a -2. But do you remember when you divide by a negative, you actually have to flip the inequality symbols. Which one do I flip? Well, both of them, because we're doing it all the same. So for my answers here, I'm going to have a +5, negative divided by negative is positive, flip the inequality, greater than or equal to. Now I have a regular x in the middle, greater than, and let's see, 8 divided by a -2 is going to be a -4. This is okay as an answer, but it's not the preferred way. We almost always want to write our final answers in number line order. So if you were going to be graphing this, you would see the -4 before you'd see the 5, right? So we want to rewrite our inequality in that format. I want to start with the -4. Okay, so I'm reading it backwards. If x is greater than the -4, that means -4 is less than the x. If 5 is greater than or equal to the x, that means x is less than or equal to the 5. Okay, so I kind of picked it up and flipped over my whole string inequality, and I'm reading it backwards now. I have a little point towards the -4 on both of them. I have the open end on the 5 on both of those, so that's kind of a check for me as well. Now let's go ahead and finish the graph on this one. So we know we're going to shade in between, because that's where our x is, in between the -4 and 5. Looking carefully at my string inequality, -4 is strictly less than, so a parenthesis, and then x is greater than or, less than or equal to the 5. So we'd have the bracket on that one. Our interval then would go from -4 with a parenthesis up to the 5 with a bracket. Let me know if you have questions.